There's no certificate. No moment where something external confirms that the process is finished. No teacher who places a hand on your shoulder and tells you that you have arrived. No dramatic interior experience that announces itself as the completion of the thing that has been underway across however many years of the genuine work. The individuation process, in Jung's understanding, does not end in a way that the ego can point to and say, "There, that is where it finished." That is the moment the process completed itself, and the self that emerged from it is now the fully individuated self that all of the preceding work was building toward. It does not work this way, and the expecting of it to work this way is itself one of the things that the process was asking to be released. The completion of individuation is not an event. It is a quality, a specific quality of the relationship between the self and its own life that develops gradually, and that is recognized, when it is recognized at all, not through any single dramatic moment of arrival, but through the specific and often quiet, noticing that something that was always running has stopped. That something that required continuous effort no longer requires it. That something that was always slightly in the way of genuine presence in the genuine life is no longer in the way in the same manner. Most people who reach something genuinely close to completion do not recognize it immediately, because the recognition requires a quality of interior attention that the process itself has been developing, and the development of this quality is itself part of what the completion consists of, which means that the recognition and the completion are not separate events. The capacity to recognize the completion is one of the things the completion produces. This is one of the more genuinely disorienting features of the process. The thing that would allow you to know you have arrived is developed by the arriving, which means the person at the beginning of the process, looking forward toward the completion, cannot accurately imagine what the completion will look like, cannot accurately anticipate what it will feel like, cannot orient the seeking toward an accurate image of the destination, because the accurate image of the destination is only available from within the destination itself. Carl Jung was clear about this, not as a way of making the process seem more mysterious than it is, as an honest acknowledgement of what genuine psychological development actually involves, which is not the accumulation of more content, not the addition of more understanding or more insight or more of the specific qualities that the process produces along the way, but the genuine transformation of the structure through which the self encounters its own experience. And the transformed structure is not visible from within the untransformed one in the way that would allow accurate anticipation. So, what actually happens? What are the specific markers of the completion that are recognizable, not as the dramatic arrival that was anticipated, but as the quiet qualities that the genuine completion actually produces? I want to be specific, because the general language of psychological development, the language of wholeness and integration, and the genuine self emerging, is easy to use and difficult to feel the actual content of. And the actual content is what matters for the person who is genuinely trying to understand whether what they are experiencing is the completion or another stage in the process. The first thing that happens is that the inner critic loses its authority. Not that it disappears, not that the voice that was always ready to assess the self's adequacy and find it wanting goes silent. It may continue to arise. It may continue to produce its specific quality of interior commentary on the performance of the self in the ordinary situations of the ordinary life. But it loses its authority. The difference between the inner critic having authority and losing it is not the difference between its presence and its absence. It is the difference between the self organizing its behavior around the critic's assessment and the self noticing the critic's assessment without the assessment directing the behavior. In the earlier stages, the inner critic's voice carried a quality of truth to it that made its assessments feel like accurate reports about the self's actual adequacy. The criticism arrived, and the interior responded as though the criticism were the reliable measure of what was actually true. Organized around it, attempted to address what it was pointing toward, or collapsed under its weight, or managed it into something more bearable through the various strategies that the defending self develops for managing what the inner critic produces. When individuation approaches completion, the voice arrives and the self hears it without the hearing producing the reorganization that the hearing previously produced. Not through suppression, not through the effortful application of counter-argument to the critic's claims, through the specific quality of a self that has developed enough genuine interior ground that the critic's authority was never genuinely founded on anything more than the self's prior willingness to grant it. The critic says what it has always said. The self notices what it has always said, and then the self continues what it was doing. Not with performance, without requiring the critic's approval to continue. This is small in description. It is enormous in lived experience. Because the amount of the life that was spent in the management of the inner critic, in the various forms of either complying with its assessments, or defending against them, or attempting to satisfy its conditions, this is not a small amount, and its cessation produces a quality of interior freedom that the process was building toward, without the person inside the process always being able to name it as what was being built toward. The second thing that happens is that the reactions to other people change at the level of structure rather than content. Not that the person in the final stages of individuation stops having reactions to other people. The reactions continue. The specific emotional responses to what other people do and say, and fail to do and fail to say, continue to arise with the naturalness of genuine feeling in a genuine person navigating genuine relationships. But the structure of the reaction changes. In the earlier stages, a significant portion of the reaction to other people was not actually a reaction to the other person. It was a reaction to what the other person was activating in the interior. The projection that their behavior was triggering, the shadow material that their specific qualities were bringing into contact with the interior, the old wound that their specific pattern of relating was touching in the specific way that the wound remained touchable. The individuation process is substantially the process of making this visible, of learning to distinguish between what is actually occurring in the external situation and what the external situation is activating in the interior, of withdrawing the projections gradually and encountering the actual person rather than the interior image that was being projected onto them. When the process approaches completion, this distinction becomes not effortful, but natural. The reaction arises, and the self, without a deliberate act of reflection, already knows whether the reaction is primarily about what just happened, or primarily about what just happened is touching in the interior. This knowing does not eliminate the reaction. The reaction that is primarily about the interior is still felt. The wound that is being touched is still touched. The shadow material that is being activated is still activated. But the self's response to the reaction is different, because the self knows what it is dealing with, knows whether the response needs to be directed outward toward the other person or inward toward the interior material that the other person's behavior activated, knows the difference not as an intellectual conclusion reached after deliberate reflection, but as an immediate quality of the interior's response to the reaction itself. This is the withdrawal of projection reaching a stage of relative completion, not perfect completion, not the impossible state in which no projection remains because the entire shadow has been fully integrated, but the practical completion in which the projection is no longer the primary lens through which other people are encountered. What this produces in relationships is a specific and often noticed quality. The people in the life of the person approaching individuation's completion often report feeling more genuinely seen by them. not because the person is doing something deliberately to see them more clearly, because they are no longer primarily seeing the projection that was previously overlaid on the actual person. The actual person is more visible, and the actual person, encountered as they actually are rather than as the projection required them to be, is encountered differently, with more genuine interest, with more genuine responsiveness to what they actually are, rather than to what the interior required them to be. This is one of the paradoxes of the completion. The self becomes more genuinely available to other people precisely because it has done enough of the interior work that the interior is no longer the primary obstacle to genuine encounter. The third thing that happens is that the future loses its quality of threat. Not that the future becomes certain, not that the genuine uncertainties about what the life will produce resolve into a comfortable confidence that things will be fine. The future remains genuinely uncertain. The life continues to contain the genuine possibilities of loss and difficulty, and the ordinary suffering that no level of psychological development removes from the available experience. But the future loses the specific quality of being primarily a site of anticipated threat that the self is continuously managing against. In the earlier stages, a significant portion of the interior's activity was organized around the future as a problem to be solved before it arrived. The various forms of anticipatory management, the running of scenarios, the specific quality of the interior being always partly in the future rather than in the present, because the future contained the threats that the interior was organized around managing before they materialized. The approaching completion of individuation produces a different relationship with the future, not indifference to it, not the absence of genuine planning and genuine preparation for what the genuine uncertainties of the genuine life might produce. A specific quality of the interior remaining in the present even while holding awareness of the future, of being genuinely present in what is actually occurring without the presence being divided by the portion of the interior that was always partly elsewhere, managing the anticipated future threats. This produces the specific quality of presence that people in the final stages of individuation are often described as having. The quality of being genuinely here, of the engagement with what is immediately occurring, being full engagement rather than engagement divided by the interior's management of what might occur. The future is held lightly, not because it does not matter, because the self has developed enough genuine interior ground that the future's uncertainty does not require the continuous management that the earlier stages required. The ground does not shift when the future shifts, because the ground is interior. And the interior ground that the individuation process has been building is not dependent on the future remaining in any particular configuration in order to remain stable. This is the specific quality of the stability that the approaching completion produces, not the stability of the life's external circumstances remaining stable. The stability of the self remaining genuinely itself, regardless of what the external circumstances produce. The fourth thing that happens is that the genuine and the performed become immediately distinguishable. In the earlier stages, the performing self was so practiced and so automatic that the distinction between what was genuine and what was performed was often unavailable in real time. The yes that was produced from anxiety was felt, while it was being produced, as a genuine yes. The accommodation that was produced from the need to remain acceptable was experienced, while it was occurring, as genuine willingness. The emotional response that was performed for the benefit of the social situation was not always clearly distinguishable in the moment of its performance from the genuine emotional response that it was replacing. The individuation process, substantially, is the process of making this distinction increasingly available, of developing the interior's capacity to notice with increasing speed and increasing accuracy when what is being expressed is genuinely the self's actual response, and when it is the performed version that the anxiety management system or the social calibration system has substituted for the genuine response. When the process approaches completion, this distinction is available in real time. Not always perfectly, not without the occasional performance that slips through before the interior can catch it, but as the reliable immediate quality of the interior's response to what it is doing, rather than as the retrospective conclusion reached after the fact. The self knows when it is performing, immediately, not as a judgment, as information. And the knowing changes what happens next. Because the performed response, recognized as performed in the moment of its production, cannot be sustained with the same effortlessness that the unconscious performance sustained. It requires a degree of conscious effort that the unconscious performance never required, and the effort makes visible the alternative. The genuine response that the performance was replacing, and the genuine response becomes available to be chosen. Not always chosen, not in every social situation and every relational context and every moment of the ordinary day. The performance has its appropriate place, and the completion of individuation does not eliminate the appropriate performance that the social life genuinely requires. But the genuine response is available in a way that it was not previously available, and its availability changes the interior experience of the life in a way that is difficult to describe to someone who has not experienced the difference, but that is immediately recognizable to anyone who has. The life feels more genuinely inhabited, because more of what is occurring in it is genuinely the self's own response, rather than the managed version. The fifth thing that happens is that solitude changes quality. In the earlier stages of the process, solitude often carried a quality of discomfort that the social world was providing relief from. Not always, not for everyone in the same way. But the specific discomfort of being genuinely alone with the interior, without the mediation of the social world's inputs and demands, and the specific orientation toward others that the social world provides. This discomfort was present in many people who were genuinely doing the interior work. Because the interior, in the earlier stages, still contained significant amounts of unprocessed material that surfaced in solitude with a quality of pressure and urgency that the social world's activity was providing relief from. The shadow material pressing for acknowledgement, the grief that had not been grieved, the fear that had not been honestly encountered, the genuine desire that had not been acknowledged. Solitude, in the earlier stages, often brought this material to the surface with enough force that the experience of genuine solitude was not the restful experience that the later stages produce. When individuation approaches completion, solitude changes. Not because the interior is now empty of all difficult material, the shadow is never fully emptied, and the individuation process does not promise the elimination of all interior difficulty. But the material that remains is more familiar, has been encountered more honestly, is not pressing with the same urgency of the long suppressed and long unacknowledged, has been met often enough that the meeting is no longer primarily uncomfortable, and solitude becomes genuinely restful. The interior, alone with itself, is not primarily a place of pressure and urgency. It is a place of genuine companionship with the self, of the specific quality of being at home in the interior that the earlier stages, with their unprocessed material pressing for acknowledgement, could not produce. This quality of solitude is one of the most reliable markers of the approaching completion, not the ability to be alone without distraction. Many people can be alone without distraction through the simple suppression of the interior that makes the distraction unnecessary. The specific quality of being genuinely alone with the interior and finding the interior genuinely good company, genuinely interesting, genuinely sustaining, genuinely sufficient for the quality of interior experience that the earlier stages had required the social world to provide. This is the self-companionship that Jung pointed toward as one of the central achievements of the individuation process, not self-absorption, not the withdrawal from genuine engagement with the genuine exterior world, the specific quality of a self that is genuinely at home in its own interior. That does not require the exterior to be constantly providing the experience of aliveness that the interior, in its more fully developed form, can now provide from within. I want to talk about what the completion does not produce. Because the absence of certain things is as important as the presence of the things described above, and the expecting of these absent things is one of the primary reasons that people who are genuinely approaching completion do not recognize that they are approaching it. The completion does not produce the absence of difficulty. The completion does not make these things easier in the sense of less present or less genuinely difficult when they arrive. It makes them less destabilizing, less capable of producing the specific interior emergency that the earlier stages produced in response to genuine difficulty, less able to shift the ground that the self is standing on, because the ground the self is standing on is no longer located in the external circumstances that the difficulty is disrupting. The completion also does not produce the end of growth. The individuation process, reaching a stage that functions as something like completion, does not mean that the self is now finished, does not mean that there is no further development available, does not mean that the shadow has been fully integrated and the genuine self is now fully expressed, and the process of becoming more genuinely oneself is now complete in a way that requires nothing further. What it means is that the relationship with the process has changed. In the earlier stages, the process was something the self was doing, was organizing its life around, was sustained by the effort and the willingness and the specific quality of interior work that the earlier stages required. In the approaching completion, the process is something that is simply occurring, that has become the natural movement of a self that is no longer organized around the avoidance of its own interior. That continues not because the self is effortfully maintaining it, but because the self has become genuinely oriented toward the kind of honest interior engagement that the process consists of. The process does not complete in the sense of stopping. It completes in the sense of no longer requiring the specific quality of effortful maintenance that the earlier stages required. It becomes the natural quality of a self that is genuinely interested in its own interior and genuinely willing to encounter what the interior contains, which is not a dramatic arrival. It is the specific quality of a self that has been genuinely changed by the process it underwent. Changed not in the sense of having become something entirely new, in the sense of having become more genuinely what it always was, which was always the destination, not the arrival at something the self was not, the genuine inhabitation of what the self actually is, which was always there, beneath everything that the process was asking to be released, waiting not for the completion of something being built, but for the falling away of everything that was preventing the genuine self from simply being what it had always been. That falling away is the completion. And you will know it, not because something announces it, but because you notice, one ordinary day, that something that was always running has stopped, and the stopping feels like arriving somewhere, even though you have not moved, even though nothing external has changed, even though the life looks, from the outside, remarkably similar to the life that preceded the completion. From the inside it is different, in the specific way that actually being somewhere is different from moving toward it, which is a difference that cannot be adequately described from outside the experience, but that is immediately recognizable from within it. Comment below. What is the specific thing that has shifted in you recently that you could not have anticipated at the beginning of your interior work?